We are in a series in Proverbs called The Path of Wisdom. The Path of Wisdom. And many of you know that owls are recognized as a symbol of wisdom. If you read any children's book, there's always some wise owl sitting in a tree for some reason. And you know as well as I do that if I hauled an owl up here and compared his IQ to me or to you, we'd be clearly smarter or superior to any owl that I could find. But let me tell you, right? Why are they talked about in terms of wisdom? Well, yeah, they've got acute eyesight, they've got elite hearing, they've got these unique things. But what makes an owl superior to a human in only one way is this, right? Their head is mounted in such a unique way, in such a flexible way, that while its body is facing in one direction, if you ever notice that its head can spin around 180 degrees. So while it's looking body facing here, its head can be facing backwards. And that feels like magic to me. I can't contort my body in a special way. I look at the owl and think, that's pretty cool, right? Because it can see danger from every direction. And so for us, in our call to be wise, while we cannot do that physically, ultimately in the land of spirituality, that's exactly what we're called to do. We should be looking for wisdom all of the time, in every direction, spinning our heads around in our pursuit of wisdom. Because to be truly wise, you need to be looking in every direction, turning your head to see what lies behind, seeing what lies before us, looking to the past, looking to the future in our lives, to see where wisdom lies, to see where evil hides. Because wisdom is there, it's just waiting to be seen. And see, choices mark the Christian life. Your lives are marked by choices every day, some small and inconsequential, it seems, some really massive decisions. Small things like what you're going to wear, what you're going to eat, big choices. Where are you going to work? Who are you going to marry? What school should you go to? Choices about faith, choices about God, choices about how you relate to people, choices about who you love, like all of these kinds of things. Choices make up much of our lives. And so as we begin week 2 in our series called The Path of Wisdom, King Solomon presents for us the greatest choice that we could ever make. And he's going to lay out 2 paths, 2 relationships, 2 choices. And the decision that we make, even tonight, may impact the choices that we make for the rest of our lives. And so I want to invite you to turn with me to Proverbs chapter 1. We're going to see this great choice. We're going to examine what is at stake, and we are going to have a call to action. And so first, tonight, Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly, and we are going to examine the paths. The decision that's before us today is whether or not we choose wisdom. The choice to pursue wisdom or to reject wisdom will fundamentally impact all of the other decisions that we make in our lives. Wisdom or foolishness is the pavement, if you will, of the path that we choose to walk on. And the reality is that every choice, good or bad, is undergirded either by foolishness or by wisdom. And so throughout the book of Proverbs, you will see that Solomon uses a tool we call personification. And that's personification is taking an abstract concept like folly or wisdom and attaching human characteristics and personalities to it so that it becomes more concrete. And so throughout the book, you will see wisdom and you will see folly personified as women. You may have heard the term before, Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. And Solomon is writing to his son, and so he's personifying vice and virtue as women to make it more tangible and easy to understand so that he can grasp this idea, make it more relatable. And so we're going to see throughout this book these 2 different paths, these 2 different women, if you will, Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. So I want us to look together at these 2 paths and examine them. And so let's start with Lady Wisdom. It says in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 20, Wisdom cries aloud in the street. In the markets, she raises her voice. At the head of the noisy streets, she cries out. At the entrance of the city gates, she speaks. And then in Proverbs chapter 8, does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads, she takes her stand. Beside the gates in front of the town, at the entrance of the portals, she cries aloud. So here's our first wisdom, or our first woman, wisdom, right? She is bold. She is in the roads, in the squares, at the city gates. She's going up to the hilltop and she's shouting out over the city. She wants her message to go forth. These are public places where the crowds would gather. And Lady Wisdom is not afraid of strangers. Lady Wisdom is not timid. Lady Wisdom is on a mission. She's calling all people to follow her light, to listen to her voice, to enter into a relationship with her. And she's bringing an important message. Keep going in chapter 1. Look at verse 22 and 23. How long, O simple ones, will you love being simple? How long will scoffers delight in their scoffing and fools hate knowledge? If you turn at my reproof, behold, I will pour out my spirit to you. I will make my words known to you. So wisdom speaks first. She makes her appeal. She's aligning herself with righteousness, aligning herself with justice, aligning herself with equity. This is Lady Wisdom. She's not property. She's not money. She's not a subjective idea even. Lady Wisdom is an objective reality that is tied into the very wisdom of God himself. And here she speaks first to the simple. She speaks to the naive one. Very few people say, I hate wisdom. I don't want wisdom. No, but the naive person just says, I'm just good the way I am. I don't really need to grow. I'm okay. And then she speaks to the scoffers. Scoffers a little bit more, they're scorning the truth. They're more aggressive. They're more calculating in their position. They're more hardened in the face of wisdom. And then she mentions the fools. They're the ones that despise wisdom and instruction. This is the dull and stubborn person in the face of wisdom, the thick-headed person, the fool. You've met this type of person who always has an excuse. They're never at fault for anything. And all of these people lack wisdom. They lack urgency in their pursuit of wisdom. They aren't heeding the call as she's crying out to them. And here we see a very interesting word that shows us what wisdom expects. It says, if you turn at my reproof. Other translations say, if you repent, right? These people need to hear the correction of wisdom. They need to hear God's rebuke. They need to be disciplined. They need to grow toward Jesus. They need to be brought onto the path of wisdom. And look what wisdom offers. I'm going to jump to Proverbs 8. It's on the screen. Look what wisdom offers. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. For my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous. There's nothing twisted or crooked in them. They're all straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Verse 10, take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you may desire cannot compare with her. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and I find knowledge and discretion. The fear of the Lord is hatred of evil. Pride and arrogance and the way of evil and perverted speech. I hate that. I have counsel and sound wisdom. I have insight and I have strength. All right, so you see it, right? Lady Wisdom is associating herself with righteousness, with truth, with wholesome behavior, with good judgment. She's aligning herself with common sense, with insight, with strength. And then on the other hand, she's telling us, you got to stay as far as possible away from evil, from perversion, from crookedness, from pride and arrogance and deception. And so wisdom, as we talked about last week, I defined it as the skill of godly living. Wisdom is the skill of godly living. And so imagine your life in such a way that all of these things are applied to the choices that you make. That your life was full of righteousness and truth and justice and equity and integrity, and you had good judgment to make good choices. Right? That's the path of wisdom that's presented here. But then this book presents this other path that's authored by Lady Folly. She's on the other side of the spectrum. She represents indiscretion and foolishness, even stupidity. Look what it says in Proverbs chapter 9, verse 13. The woman folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat on the highest place of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. You know, as you read through Proverbs, and I hope you do throughout the fall, you're going to see this picture of wisdom and folly. And folly is always brash. Her voice is just added to the cacophony of noise that's calling for our attention. But she's seductive. She's alluring, she's tantalizing, she's exciting, but she's ignorant, and she's dangerous, and she's spewing foolishness. So she's inviting you and I to a different path, inviting us to a different outcome entirely. All throughout this book, her path is a warning to those who follow her. Let me give an example of these two paths, Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly. So Lady Wisdom tells us not to steal. It's one of the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not steal. And Proverbs teaches us to work hard, to work diligently, rather than to steal. Lady Wisdom says in Proverbs 20:17, that bread gained by deceit is sweet to a man, but afterward his mouth will be full of gravel. Lady Folly says this, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. All right, so think about this in real life with me, okay? I hope at some point in your life, as a child, you were taught that when you take things that aren't yours, it's wrong. You shouldn't do that. That's what the Bible teaches in the law, and that is reinforced even in our culture, in fables, in proverbs. It's reinforced by the laws in our government. It's reinforced, I hope, by parents that taught you this growing up, reinforced by pastors, all sorts of people. And some, the wise person, might hear this and say, yeah, I won't steal when the opportunity is presented to me. But then Lady Folly, right, she calls out and comes up with all sorts of reasons that stealing is fine. You could steal. It's fun. It's a rush. It's not that big a deal. It's a good bonding with your friends. If you steal at Walmart, you're really just robbing a big corporation. It's no big deal. And so person number one has the urge. They hear the call of Lady Folly to go steal, and yet they align themselves with Lady Wisdom and say, no, I'm going to stay home. I'm not going to steal. And yet somebody else, person number two, says, no, you know what? I'm going for it. I'm going to steal. I'm going to follow Lady Folly. Let me tell you a true story of a lady who chose to follow Lady Folly. I used to be an assistant manager at Walmart. I feel like every good story starts that way. And we'd been on the lookout for this group of women that had been coming in consistently and stealing cosmetics. And so one night, this group of women came back in, and we noticed this one girl. She's there, and she's in the cosmetics aisle. She's just got a backpack, and she's loading up fragrances and cosmetics and filling her backpack up. And so we follow her, and we tell her to stop, and she runs out the front door with this backpack full of stuff. And my asset protection manager, Jared, and I were yelling for her to stop, and she says, no, I'm not going to stop. And so she just keeps going out into the parking lot. It's about 10 o'clock at night. It's pouring rain, and she runs into the parking lot, and she starts like weaving her way through the parking lot like she's some sort of bumblebee. And I was kind of thought that was weird, because like, are you going to lose me by just like weaving through a parking lot? And I'm chasing after her, and we're yelling. And she had this getaway car that's waiting on the other side of the parking lot. And so this car starts to pull up, and she's waving her arms and screaming, trying to get the attention of this car as we're chasing after her and telling her to stop. And, rules are rules. I'm not allowed to tackle this woman in the parking lot, so I just have to yell and tell her to stop, and we have the police on the line. And this car pulls up and opens the door, and this woman attempts a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible style, like car keeps moving, and she's just going to jump right into the car, right? And kind of a larger woman, full backpack on her back, and gets about halfway in that car door and kind of got stuck. It didn't really work. And the car accelerates, and she falls out of the car as it zooms, and she falls on her back in the pouring rain, is laying there. And I'm kind of laughing now at this point, because I didn't have a lot of empathy. She's stealing hundreds of dollars worth of stuff, and she's laying there in the rain, and I'm kind of like, well, So then she yelled, the door is still open, right, because she fell out of the car, and she's screaming at the driver, cussing him out. And so I think it was actually a girl driving it, and she hits reverse. No offense, that's not the point of the story. It just was. It was a group of women, all right? That's not what I'm saying, all right? What happens next? So she hits reverse and backs up and just runs over this girl's leg. So she's laying there, backs the car, bang, runs right over her leg. So then she's screaming, and I hope I wasn't laughing harder. I don't really know. And then, she's really upset, and I don't know how, listen, I've never stolen anything from Walmart. I'm not sure how it was supposed to go, but I'm certain that was not the plan that they drew up over lunch. And so she hops into the car screaming, and they drive away. And of course, by this point, we have her information and the license plate, and we call the police, and they catch her about an hour later, and we end up charging her with felony theft. And, somewhere along the way, right, this woman said, I'm going to listen to Lady Folly. I'm going to let her have an ear into my life. And ultimately, it ended up costing her financially, costing her judicially, costing her physically in all of these ways. There are always two paths to take, and we need to examine them. And so, secondly, the call as we look at Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly is to weigh the stakes. Examine the cost. As you read through Proverbs, one of the most pervasive metaphors you will see is this Hebrew word derek, which is translated way or path or road. It's over 25 times throughout Proverbs. It's implied many more times. And this is really an important picture. It's a rich metaphor, the idea of a path. Because a good path always has a starting point, has a place you begin. Think about where you are in your life right now. That's your current starting point. A path has a starting point. It also has a destination. A good path has somewhere it's going. If you think about the book Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, there's this character Christian, and his destination on the path is the celestial city. It's where he's going. A good path has a destination. But a path is also going to have these key transitional moments. We tend to call them forks in the road, or obstacles, detours, roadblocks, choices. And so Proverbs is identifying for us these two paths, the path of wisdom and the path of folly. And we need to know that what these paths entail, where they take us, so that we can make the right choice in our lives. Anytime we make a decision, we've got to count the cost, right? If I get invited to go on a 2-week trip to Colorado, I got to examine what's the cost going to be to my bank account, right? If you say I'm going to enroll in the military, what's the cost for you over the next couple decades, right? If you want to get a dog, what's the cost for you in terms of early morning walks when you could be sleeping? Like, what does it mean for your day-to-day life, whatever it is? And so you've got to say, what are the stakes? What is the cost in any choice I make? And look what he says in Proverbs 8. Whoever finds me finds life. This is verse 35. And obtains favor from the Lord. But he who fails to find me, this is wisdom talking, injures himself. And all who hate me love death. Wow. More verses in Proverbs 8. It says, the woman Folly is loud, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. He does not know that the dead are there, that her guests are in the depths of Sheol. I think that's chapter 9. So as we consider the two paths here, we've got to weigh the stakes. We must get wisdom, hear me, we must get wisdom like our life depends on it because it does. We must get wisdom like our life depends on it because it does. This isn't like picking which highway we're going to drive west on. This isn't trying to pick the running back for fantasy on Sunday. I picked the wrong one. It's not deciding which college you go to. These aren't choices like that. It's much bigger than that. And this is actually the point. All throughout Proverbs, the stakes are eternal. If you choose the path of folly, it will not go well for you. If you forsake these teachings, if you live for yourself, if you choose sin, if you live in excess or addiction, if you snub your nose at accountability and community and correction and discipline, if you gallivant around with foolish friends, if you choose poor lovers, if you embrace Lady Folly in your thoughts, in your actions, in your decisions, it will not go well with you. It will devour your soul. Her steps lead to death. It'll be pain, poverty, injury. Its path leads to the depths of Sheol, straight to the grave. That's where Lady Folly leads us in the book of Proverbs. Lady Wisdom, on the other hand, is life. It's life. She is abundant. She has blessing. It is pleasure. It is righteousness. It is goodness. Brothers and sisters, it is the best that our God has to offer in the form of wisdom. It says it will go well with you. And so to embrace Lady Wisdom is to embrace growth, embrace correction, embrace discipline, live humbly, pursue repentance, work hard, live for God, not yourself. And some may push back and disagree, but Proverbs loves the black and white. There's not a lot of gray in Proverbs. These are the right principles to live by. And so as you read it, it presents it in very stark terms. There's no third path presented here. You know, the hey, I tried really hard but was sort of lazy but sometimes made good decisions path. Right? No. Wisdom or folly. It's binary options. And I hope that every single one of us can see that if we actually follow the way of wisdom, it is better for us, for our souls. As I was reading through today, just a few that popped out. Wise versus foolish. Humble versus proud. Diligent versus slothful. Prudent versus rash. Integrity versus deceit. Giving versus greed. I could just keep going. But these are taught to us for our good. Like, you know that, right? I'm in your corner. I'm for you. The book of Proverbs is for you. It wants you to grab wisdom. It wants you to believe these things. God has given us this book because he is for you. And he's inviting you to walk on the path of wisdom because it's what's best for us. Why? Because wisdom is actually a safeguard for us morally. Look at Proverbs chapter 2. I'll read a couple verses here. The Lord stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He's a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of his saints. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you. Do you hear the guardrails, the safety, the protection? Delivering you from the way of evil, from men of perverted speech. Jump into verse 20. So you will walk in the way of the good and keep to the paths of the righteous. For the upright will inhabit the land, and those with integrity will remain in it. But the wicked will be cut off from the land, and the treacherous will be rooted out of it. The Lord is revealing that his protection is on the righteous, but the wicked will be cut off. And the reason that the stakes are high, the reason that I'm addressing your soul tonight with this, is because true wisdom is only found in God. Proverbs 1:7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. This is the theme of the book. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. He goes on in Proverbs 2:5, for the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 9:10 and 11, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. The knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied and years will be added to your life. Lady Wisdom is wrapped up in God. And the stakes are so high, I believe, because we can't divorce wisdom from God himself. If you reject God, then you reject the principal part of wisdom, which is God himself. And so wisdom begins by understanding this phrase, the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord. And it's used all throughout the Proverbs, and its usage does not mean that we're terrified of God, but rather the fear of the Lord is this realization that God is fully in control and that we need to submit our lives to him, surrender ourselves to him, right? And look to him so that we can have wise thinking and wise living, right? It's fear of the Lord is drawing near to God reverently so that our lives might be characterized by obedience to the King. That's what he means when he says fear of the Lord. And there's a heart element to this, isn't there? Because Solomon wrote this book, and you may know the story, but he didn't really live by the principles he taught. He had multiple failures. If you read the book of Ecclesiastes, it's sort of him recounting his struggles and reflecting on what he learned. And it does seem that by the end of Solomon's life, that he understood again that all is vanity except in God. And so to me, as I know the background of Solomon, Solomon then becomes a warning for us. He's a reminder to us that this is a high-stakes game. His struggles don't discount the value or the authority of Proverbs. To me, it's just proof positive that even though someone can possess wisdom for a time and articulate principles, we can never let our hearts turn away from the foundational fear of the Lord. Just because you have knowledge, just because you were born on third base in a Christian family and you've attended church all your life and you understand morals and you've been in the church and taught the scriptures, that doesn't automatically guarantee a wise life out of you. doesn't guarantee that you'll live a life submitting to God consistently. Solomon's just a great example for us of someone who did not commit himself to love God above all else. And in that great mistake, he let wisdom slip through his fingers. His failures don't negate the value of this book. To me, they prove its message. And in many ways, that's why I'm preaching this sermon tonight. Because I cannot assume, and you should not assume, that we're going to make right choices the rest of our lives. Lady Folly is a temptress. She always shows up as a siren trying to call us away. She's sneaky. We need to be committed. We need to stay the course. So I'll put it this way as our third point tonight. We need to resolve to choose the path of wisdom. Resolve to choose the path of wisdom. To be resolved is to be fully committed to something without hesitation. To be firm in our determination without wavering. At noon on January 1st, 1863, the final draft of the Emancipation Proclamation was given to Abraham Lincoln on his desk. And he'd been spending all morning, over 3 hours, shaking hands with people. And so when he sat down to sign this draft, his hands were shaking so badly that he needed to stop. And one biographer quoted him as saying this: "If my name ever goes into history, it will be for this act, and my whole soul is in it. If my hand trembles when I sign the proclamation, all who examine the document hereafter will say, 'He hesitated.'" The president then took up his pen and firmly and resolutely signed Abraham Lincoln. He was resolved in the act, and he wanted the whole world to know there was no hesitation in his choice. In the same way, you and I need to sign on the dotted line of wisdom. Without hesitation, without wavering. Fully resolved that we want this. And look at the way it's presented at the beginning of Proverbs 2. He says, "My son, if you receive my words and treasure my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom and inclining your heart to understanding." Yes, if you call out for insight and you raise your voice for understanding, if you seek it like silver and search for it as a hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. Like the onus is placed on the son to receive what is given. And wisdom is not easily received. We've got to work hard to find her. And so are we resolved that we want wisdom in our lives? Hear me. Spiritual wisdom is not a once-a-week hobby. It is a daily discipline of your life and of your heart. And so don't buy into this get wisdom quick scheme. We love fast things. We love microwaves and Pop-Tarts and fast food and drive-thrus and high-speed internet. And we're conditioned that everything comes fast and it comes easy. And our attention span, because of that, we're like a newborn goldfish. Which is not great. And folly is there. And she is beckoning the immature. She is beckoning those of us in the process of development. She is beckoning those of us at critical life moments. And Lady Wisdom and Lady Folly are both calling us into relationship with them. They are calling us to dine together at the table. That language is used throughout Proverbs, and in the ancient Near East, a call to eat together was a call to experience intimate relationship with someone. And so Proverbs 1-9 is calling the reader to make a choice, to be resolved. With whom will you eat? At what table will you dine? Who will be your company? And so I just want to implore you tonight to resolve to get wisdom like your life depends on it, because it does. to come to the buffet of wisdom and pull up a seat and enjoy the feast. And so throughout this series, we are going to be sitting at the feet of the book of Proverbs. We are going to be seeking wisdom in this vast variety of areas. But before we ever get to stewardship or speech or work or friendship or fill it in, before we get to those things, the only thing that matters is that you are resolved to be bought in on wisdom. Because these proverbs are only valuable to those who want them, to those who heed their call. Think of it this way. Some of you have gone to college, and some of you have made the poor decision to not care a whole lot in college, right? And you maybe for whatever reason, you don't care enough about your finances, you don't care enough about the time that you're wasting, but you or someone else may know someone who's kind of wasted or squandered the college experience. And think about that person. It doesn't matter what wisdom is spoken in that classroom. It doesn't matter what you were meant to be taught. You will never receive that wisdom if you're skipping class. You're never going to hear the wisdom of the professor bringing you along in understanding if you're sleeping in the back. And here we've got Solomon. Man, he's written 3,000 proverbs. They've been condensed to the best of the best. The wisest man who ever lived under the influence of the Spirit of God. And he's collected even other proverbs from wise people. And he brought them into a Christian worldview. And it's here for us. But it doesn't matter if we don't want it. It doesn't matter. And so not to be overly simplistic, not to reduce the matter to something too small or too simple, but my goal for the upcoming sermons is not behavior modification out of you or I. It's not to simply change how we act. It's a call for us to enter into the wisdom of God, the wisdom that's found in Jesus, to fear the Lord and seek His wisdom in thought and deed. And I think Proverbs chapter 4, verse 5 says it so well. It says, get wisdom, get insight. It's a command. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. And so in this series, I want to give us some moments of reflection. And so as I invite the band up now, I just want to give us some tangible things to consider, some tangible things to pray about and to meditate on. So here's my question. Do you seek wisdom like your life depends on it? Is there anything that's hindering your resolve for wisdom? I'm going to throw up a list for you to prayerfully consider. What about pride? Is there something in your life that hates authority, that chafes under leadership? Is there something in you that's a hard time taking advice or learning from others? Could pride be holding you back from growing in wisdom? What about busyness? Do you just not leave enough time for the wisdom of God? Is it not a priority to you? You fill your days with some things good, bad, and different, but it's gotten in the way of your pursuit of wisdom. Sin. Is there some sin that you cannot shake? Some sin that you love and hold on to in your heart, and so wisdom cannot take a foothold? Laziness. Are you content with shallow living, with passivity? What about fear of man? It's a big one. We don't fear God. We fear man even more. We crave people's approval. It's the fear of the Lord that's the beginning of wisdom. What about foolish influences? Are you surrounded by people in your life, poor friends, poor lovers that are slowing you down? Or maybe it's unbelief. Maybe you just aren't sure. This Bible seems outdated. It doesn't seem relevant. I don't buy the wisdom of the Scriptures. I don't believe it. If God is going to call us to wisdom, to know the one true God, if He's inviting us into the path of wisdom, what I want to do right now, I want to give us about 30 seconds to a minute. Now I want to invite you just to go before the Lord. I want you to pray. I want you to pray that God would call you to wisdom. I want you to pray that you would have resolve for it. And I want you to pray over this list, that the Lord might reveal something in you that might be holding you back from growing in the wisdom of our God and Savior. So I'm going to invite you right now to take a moment to pray, and then we're going to sing in response together.